Dear Grade 10 students, we are very pleased to introduce you a revision for Units 1 and 2 for the mid of the first semester exams. The first part in our revision today will be about the elements of a short story. First of all, I'd like you to look carefully at this picture. A short story is similar to your dish. It needs the best ingredients for you to enjoy its delectable taste. Stories are made up of four important elements. These elements are the setting, the characters, the plot, and the theme. The setting tells the reader where and when the story takes place. The characters are the people, and in some stories, the animals that take part in the story. And the characterization is the description of the personalities of the characters in the story, and the way in which an author reveals their personalities. There are two identifications of characters. The first one is the protagonist, who is the hero of the story, and the antagonist is the villain in the story, who is always opposing the protagonist. Methods of characterization. Creating believable characters can be used in indirect way by describing the physical appearance, the speech, thoughts, feelings, or actions of the character, the speech, thoughts, or feelings, or actions of other characters. And the direct way of characterization can be through the narrator's direct comments about a character. The plot. The plot is the chain or series of related events that take place in a story. The plot is built around conflict, which is a struggle between opposing forces in the story. And as we can see in the picture in front of us, the plot diagram, where we start our story with the exposition, and then the rising action, and the climax, then the falling action, and finally the resolution of the story. The plot is the sequence or order of events in a story. The plot includes exposition statement or the introduction, the part of the plot that tells us how the story begins. Rising action is the action in the story leading up to the climax. The conflict is the struggles or problems between the opposing forces in the story. The climax event is the point of crisis in the plot. It may be the reader's point of highest interest, and the falling action is the action in the story after the climax is revealed. The resolution is the part of the plot that reveals the final outcome of the story. Types of conflict in the story. It can be man versus man, or man versus nature, or man versus obstacle or society, and man versus supernatural being, and man versus himself. It's called inner conflict. The theme of the story is the main idea of a story. It's not a moral or a lesson or a rule for living. For example, respect, loyalty. Now to conclude about the elements of the story. Now that we have identified and defined the elements of a short story, let's use the elements to analyze a short story. You may use your notes from the PowerPoint presentation to use these elements in the short story. And this is the end of the first part of our revision today about the elements of the story. Thank you very much. Now let's move to our second part in the revision today, figures of speech. Figures of speech are words or phrases that depart from straightforward literal language. Figures of speech are often used and crafted for emphasis, freshness, expression, or clarity. Types of figures of speech. We have simile, metaphor, alliteration, onomatopoeia, hyperbole. The simile is a comparison between two unlike things using words like as or as. For example, he eats like an ant. You are as pretty as a picture. The metaphor is also a comparison of two unlike things or expressions, sometimes using the verb to be and not using the words like or as in the simile. To be, am, as, are, was, were. Examples for the metaphor: he is a lion. You are a tulip. Alliteration is the repetition of initial consonant sounds of neighboring words, or in other words, it's the repetition of the consonant sounds that come at the beginning of some words in the same line. Sally sells seashells by the seashore. More examples for the alliteration: she left the heaven for heroes and came down to make man to meet the mortal need. A man to match the mountains and the sea. The friendly welcome of the wayside well. Onomatopoeia. Words like mat, p. An onomatopoeia is a word that imitates the sound it represents. The chiming of the bells, the boom of the explosion. More examples of onomatopoeia: tinkling sleigh bells, clanging fireballs, mellow chiming wedding bells, tolling, moaning, and groaning funeral bells. Hyperbole. Hyperbole is an exaggeration or an overstatement. His feet as big as a boat's. I nearly died laughing. More examples for hyperbole: Here once the embattled farmers stood and fired. I hope you like it, and thank you very much for listening for our first part in our revision today. Thank you very much for your attention.